Little bit of a roller coaster weekend for the Buffalo Sabres. The owner was around. That's interesting. An interesting thing with Jack Quinn happening and Ryan McLeod, all from the last couple of days. Coming up as we recap it here in the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody, and welcome into this Sunday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including our YouTube channel where you can watch the show. Be sure to like and subscribe us there, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is presented by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Sneaky Joe DiBiase here on a Sunday after 3 games over the weekend, all on a Midwest trip. Midwest, Utah. Utah is west, but Minnesota, Winnipeg, that's more Midwest. So West, Midwest trip, whatever it ended up being. The Sabres come away with 1 win on the trip, 2 losses on the trip, and a lot of interesting things happening over the course of this trip. Not a lot of that was the game itself. A little bit was. For me, kind of looked like 3 uninspiring hockey games by the Buffalo Sabres. Even in this win here on Sunday against Winnipeg, they kind of got dominated from beginning to end, but goaltending, sometimes that happens. Once in a while, your goalie shows up and has a phenomenal game, and sometimes the other goalie doesn't, and that's a lot of what happened against the Jets. To me, didn't really think they played all that great in any of the 3 games. So a lot to get to on that front, including this win, but also the owner being in the building. What happened with Jack Quinn? And shout out right off the top here to Ryan McLeod, who I am planning to do a full dive in on tomorrow because I don't think we've talked a lot about his contract yet. The bigger overarching question that I'm going to ask tomorrow on the show, if you want to get your take on this and get it heard on the show, you can do that now. By the way, if you want to do that, Text Club, best way to do it. If you're not already a subscriber, join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres. The question of, is Ryan McLeod playing himself into the Buffalo Sabres core? Because he's been that good. And here he is against the Jets with a 4-point night. We know how good he is defensively. It's incredible to me. I was texting with Tom Gazzola, who covers the Oilers, who I go on his show a lot. And we were texting a lot about McLeod and Skinner and, Savoy when all the offseason shakeups happened last year. And I was texting with him today because one thing Tom told me about McLeod that he was criticized for in Edmonton more than anything was the guy just won't go into the dirty areas. He won't play physically. He doesn't go into the corners. And I was texting about that with him today because here's a stat for you. With his empty net goal that gave him 17 on the year with 57 seconds to go in Winnipeg, 47 seconds to go in Winnipeg, he now has more goals on the season than he does hits. 17 goals, 16 hits on the season is actually incredible. He is by far last on the Sabres in hits. And guess what? It doesn't really matter because he still makes an incredible defensive impact. He is probably the Sabres' second best penalty killer. Maybe you could argue he's their best. Jordan Greenway, though, is pretty darn good. He's their best faceoff man. If you want to include that in defense, I don't think you really have to, but he forces turnovers. He jumps into lanes. He does block shots a little bit. He is very smart in his own end. He's good at getting it out of his own end. A lot of times that's skating it out. He makes a substantially great defensive impact, and he does it without a shred of physicality. But again, it doesn't really matter. And here he is with 3 assists and then adding the empty net goal, a 4-point night. By the way, how in the world is Ryan McLeod not named one of the 3 stars of the game with a 4-point night? I mean, I know James Reimer deserved to be the number 1 star. And okay, number 2 star of this game, the Winnipeg media voting on it, was Jacob Bernard Docker. Good job by him. Great setup on his second assist of the game to set up Dahlin's one-timer. But okay, 2 assists. He deserved to be one of the 3 stars. He wasn't making like a substantial impact outside of those 2 assists. He was fine. McLeod was better. And then Nito Niederreiter is the 3rd star scoring a goal. I don't get that one at all. So I think it was kind of highway robbery that McLeod didn't get a 3 star, but whatever. It's a 3 star. These guys don't get bonuses for that or anything. So not something to really get that upset about. All to say, McLeod was great again. And the offense continues to come. His stats continue to pile up. He has a point in almost every game he's played for the last month of the season. And here he is with a 4-point night. I mean, going back to March 6th. So this is the last 8 games now. In the last 8 games, there's only 2 games he's had without a point. And looks to my eyes like he's got, just doing some quick math, 10 points in those 8 games. So he's picked up the offense when they've been missing bodies. Yuri Kulik goes out as the top 6 forward. In steps McLeod, and he has produced. So we'll talk tomorrow about the future for McLeod, because whether he's a part of the core is a good question, and one the Sabres might need to answer right away, because he is a restricted free agent at the end of the year. And if they want to sign him to a 5-year, 6-year deal, then it probably will never be a better deal to do it than right now this summer. But are they spooked by paying guys after 1 year? Again, a lot of questions that we'll get into tomorrow. But McLeod is now past the 40-point threshold for the first time in his career, and he is on track to break 50. We'll see if he gets the 50-point threshold by the end of the year. As I mentioned, I didn't really think the Sabres deserved to win the 1 game of these last 3. The Jets, they win that game because James Reimer was unbelievable. Reimer channeling his prime Toronto self. I mean, he was laying down casually after getting knocked over in the 3rd period. Let's throw the glove up and, whip it around and make the save. Just was doing whatever he wanted to in this game. Reimer was unstoppable. He was not going to be denied in this game from winning it. So Reimer was the biggest reason why the Sabres won, because at the end of the day, look at some of these numbers. Shot attempts in this game. I'll go overall here. We'll include power play. For the overall, 71-32 in favor of Winnipeg shot attempts. 36-17 were the shots on goal. Scoring chances, 32-9 in favor of the Jets. High danger chances, 13-2 for Winnipeg. And here's the big kicker. Expected goals in the game, 3.98 for Winnipeg, 1.68 for the Sabres. Eric Comrie allowed a few goals above expectation, and Reimer allowed a few goals below expectation. That's your to me, that's the big takeaway from this hockey game. The Sabres, Peterka has a nice shot, and he cuts to the middle. It's a nice individual play by him. He keeps his goal streak going, getting it to 3 since he came back from injury. That was a nice individual play. A lot of nice individual plays that the Sabres deserve credit for on their goals. Nice job by Tyson Kozak getting a power play goal, his 2nd of his career in front of friends and family. Dahlin, again, the Bernard Docker pass is really nice, and Dahlin with a bomb scores. So there were good plays being made. It's not like these goals were going off knees and going in. It's just the Sabres scored on every big opportunity that they had, and Winnipeg had a lot that they didn't score on. And that was a key difference. Going back very quickly to the Minnesota game, there was just really nothing that stuck out to me in the Minnesota game from the Sabres effort. It was a dull hockey game. It was pretty low event, too. You had 21 shots for the Sabres and 20 for Minnesota. There was just nothing happening in that hockey game. And then the Utah game, of course, the story is the Sabres scored on themselves. Just unbelievable. One of the moments of the drought, right? One of the moments of the drought is them scoring on themselves. And Rob Ray shouting to give them the puck at the top of his lungs because they had a delayed penalty and didn't give it to him. So 2 pretty dull games before it. They get the win. Nice individual plays, nice individual moments. Overall, though, that's not the type of effort that's going to get you a lot of wins. You have to get lucky a lot of times with ones like that. So That's what you missed over the weekend. Before we get to Jack Quinn, when we come, I want to get to Jack Quinn because Lindy Ruff unveiling something this weekend, a new chapter of Jack Quinn in another negative light. I mean, you'd think nothing else could go wrong for Jack Quinn this season, right? And then, oh, no, there is something else that I guess could go wrong. So that's got me thinking about Quinn and his upcoming contract dilemma, and Terry Pegula in the building a couple of times on this trip, and a certain screen grab from the MSG broadcast that might have me thinking differently about Kevyn Adams' job security. Might run too far with that. I don't care. We're going to do it when we come back here in the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Of course, you could still bet on futures, the live betting features on FanDuel up to the second if you want to bet on what's going to happen on the next basket or what's going to be, if you want to live bet the over, that's available to you. Everything is being updated like that to give you as many options as possible. I've had my eye on a couple of those recently, especially with this college basketball. Golf, too. I love live betting golf because the ebbs and flows and the vibes. I mean, today you had JT and Hovland going back and forth, and, you know, Hovland, the way he was putting, it's like, I kind of feel like I'd like Hovland here. So that's what I'm doing. Cash out. What worked pretty well. FanDuel app, super easy to use. When I win, I get paid instantly. There is no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com today. Get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We will get to some Jack Quinn stuff because he's had a bad year, to say the least. We haven't talked about him a lot because he's kind of he's easily forgotten, which is a little weird for me because he's a first-round pick, but he never really had the big breakout. We always predicted the big breakout, and then it's just been injuries, and this season, it's just such a weird story for him that it's easy to get him lost in the shuffle, but he's important, and we got to talk about what happened with him this weekend because it's a new level of bad for him. But before that, Terry Pegula traveling with the Sabres to Utah and then to Minnesota. Unless I missed it, and correct me if I'm wrong, listeners out there, but I didn't see any, and I watched the broadcast too, I didn't see him shown. I didn't see any reference to Terry Pegula being in Winnipeg on Sunday, which I might think is, you know, if he already went to Salt Lake City, went to Minneapolis, Winnipeg is probably not as much of a destination, even as much as those two cities are. So Terry not being there might not be a stunner, but it was a little stunning in the first place that he was in Utah and in Minnesota traveling with the team. He's not often seen at these games, especially home games. I mean, I can't tell you the last time that I saw Terry Pegula at a Sabres home game that wasn't like Ryan Miller night or some festive night where he would even make a speech before a ceremony, like a number retirement, or when Jeanneret night happened. Of course, he was there. It could just be he even would tell the MSG, hey, don't show me in there, or the Jumbotron, don't show me. He might not want people to know he's there. But to me, that's backwards. I think the criticism of Terry right now is that he doesn't care, and therefore he should want to be shown. It could also be that he just doesn't want the negative reaction from the home crowd if they all realize he's there. Maybe that could be it, and maybe that's why he goes on the road. But again, this is not normal. You don't normally see Terry on the road with them. It was a big story at the beginning of the season. Oh, Pegula is flying to Montreal to meet with the team. That was a story because it doesn't often happen. And that's not just for Terry. It's for a lot of owners, most owners even. But for him, in the shape this team is in, it's a bigger story, obviously, because he's the one everyone's looking to for answers, especially about the general manager. So, of course, we don't get those answers from him speaking to the media. So you got to take what you get, right? And I said last week when talking about Kevyn Adams, I don't want to say he's not going to get fired because I don't know what the signs would be of him getting fired if it was on the way. We didn't see any signs that Tim Murray was about to get fired. It just happened. We didn't see any signs that Jason Botterill was about to get fired. It just happened. Same thing with Darcy Regier. It just kind of happened. So with Adams, I've kind of taken that approach of I'm not going to assume he's back next year. I don't know what it would look like if he was about to get fired. I've said that multiple times, both on this show and on WGR in the last week. And then maybe I got shown what it looks like. Maybe. Now, maybe I'm also reading way too much into this, but again, the owner's not around very often, so you don't often get the opportunity to read into anything. So, this little tiny bit of something that you might have, I'm willing to read into it a little bit, just because you don't often get anything. So what you have, can't share it on the YouTube stream, but if you want to find it, it's on my Twitter, and it's all over Sabres Twitter. You could find it pretty easily, I think, if you want. Just search Pegula there. What you have is a screen grab from the MSG broadcast of the Sabres box in Utah. And there are 3 individuals in the whole box that are shown. You get the 4 layers of seats. And there's 3 Sabres individuals in that box. You have Matt Ellis, that's funny, right? Matt Ellis being one of the 3. I got like the 3 most powerful men in the Sabres organization all in a box. And you would know Terry's in there and you know Kevin's in there. Who would you guess the third guy is? I mean, my hope would be that it's either Jason Karmanos or Sam Ventura, the data guys up there. No, it's Matt Ellis. The guy that we didn't want running the power play last year and was sick of being the assistant coach. Now he's sitting next to the GM and the owner. Well, actually, not really, because he wasn't sitting next to both of them. Because if you notice on this screen grab, Terry and Kevyn Adams are sitting nowhere near each other. And isn't that just a little weird? Isn't that just a little interesting? It could be nothing. Right? It could be, I don't really know what it could be. All I know is how it looks. And it doesn't look great because I want to know the mechanics of this. You know, I'm half kidding with this, but I'm half serious with it. Who walks down first? They don't walk down together, right? If they walk together down the thing and they go their separate ways, that's especially awkward. But if Terry walks down and goes and sits in the right corner seat, which he does, and then Adams comes after and goes and sit in the left corner seat, well, then Adams is in his own head maybe like, oh, he doesn't want to sit next. I don't know. And if Terry's the one who comes down second, then that might even be more meaningful because then that's to say he doesn't want to hear from this guy right now. He doesn't want to talk to Kevyn. He doesn't want to hear from Kevyn during this game. He just wants to watch the game. He just wants to watch the team and get an opinion for his own. Whatever it is. There's like 9 seats separating these two. And I don't know. It's weird to me because I don't know if you go to the game with someone, you sit in the vicinity of each other. You don't sit right next to each other. That would be weird too. If the whole thing was empty and if you and your buddy go to sit in a box, you get free seats. It's just you two. And all those empty seats there. What do? Ask yourself what you would do with you and a friend. You would not sit immediately next to each other because that might feel weird. You would sit a seat apart or 2 seats apart. Maybe 3. Probably not 3. It's probably 1 or 2. 7 or 8, whatever it was between Adams and Pegula, to me is just weird. It is weird. And I'm not going to lie, that picture's going to be in my head going into the offseason. It is. It's just a weird image of 2 people. I don't care that they were even the owner and the GM. Any 2 people that know each other sitting in a bunch of empty seats and sitting that far apart from each other, there has to be some level of tension or else it's just weird behavior. So there it is. That's my take on that picture. And maybe I'm going too far with it. But I don't even think that I am. I think I might be onto something here. But we'll see after the season if that actually is meaningful or not. I guarantee you, if he does get fired, I'm going to be ready with that picture. I'm going to tell you, see, the whole time I told you, this picture, it was meaningful. We'll see. All right, when we come back, Jack Quinn. Not a good weekend for Jack Quinn. With Lindy Ruff shared with everybody and another layer of his future with the Sabres that we learned about this weekend coming up on the Locked On Sabres podcast. This episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by 5 Hour Energy. Daylight savings snuck up on us again. If you're feeling the lost hour of sleep, 5 Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late, watching the NCAA tournament, squeezing a round of golf in after work, or just trying to keep up with the busy days, 5 Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. Whether I'm at a game or whether I'm traveling, of course, 5 Hour Energy is easy to grab, keeps me feeling refreshed. Got a big car trip coming up soon that'll be on my radar. Head to 5hourenergy.com, find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, peach mango, and many more. You can build your own 12-pack or 24-pack if you want, delivered right to your door. Need one now? Grab a 5 Hour Energy at your local grocery or convenience store. They are everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized with 5 Hour Energy. Back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, the Sabres go 1-2 against these 3 teams on the road, Utah, Minnesota, and then Winnipeg. Midwest to a little bit more out west with Utah. So, no Jack Quinn against Minnesota on Saturday. And when that happened, it wasn't like big breaking news. There wasn't big, breaking news text alerts sent out everywhere. Even when I shared it in the chat, I put the lines up and it didn't even really register for me because Jack Quinn has been a healthy scratch before. Not that often, not since really earlier in the year, I think, but it has happened. So he gets scratched and I didn't really think anything of it. And I don't really think anybody did until after the game when Lindy Ruff offered up the juicy little tidbit that Quinn was scratched not because of his play, although that could easily warrant it too. It was because he missed a morning meeting. And Lindy did seem a little put off by that when he shared that news with everybody in his post-game media after Minnesota, that Quinn was scratched because he missed a morning meeting. And I know that happens. Lindy even said it does happen over the course of his career. Still inexcusable. Let's try to think the last time I remember that happening, that it at least got made public with the Sabres. Remember when Nikita Zadorov missed that? And it was something about his alarm clock didn't go off or whatever. And of course he got traded, but that was more about O'Reilly, of course, than Zadorov, but whatever. So Quinn misses a morning meeting and he gets scratched because of it. So now we have a disciplinary mark to add on to his report card for the season. And that is just not, nothing could go worse for Jack Quinn this season. There's really feels like there's nothing to build on with Jack Quinn right now, other than, well, he was a top 10 pick. Guys that got picked in the top 10, usually pretty good. And a teensy bit of play last year that looked really good, but it was in such a limited amount of time and it was surrounded by injuries that you kind of even forget about it, right? Last year, he only plays 27 games, 19 points, pretty good. The 5-on-5 numbers were really good. This year, 26 points in 60 games. I mean, just a cratering of his offensive production that, again, he only did in a limited amount of time. And this year, there's a lot that's going wrong. There's confidence problems, it seems. I think the league has figured out what Jack Quinn wants to do. He has one move. He wants to pull the puck back. He wants to slow up and pull the puck back so that the defensemen overshoot him, and then he gets a lane and he shoots it and he scores. And I don't think he's tricking anybody. I don't think he's fooling anybody with that move. And he doesn't have this repertoire of offensive moves to go around guys, stick handling. I just don't think he has a lot to his game. I kind of feel like we're back to where we were with Jack Quinn when he was drafted. And remember, there was a lot of criticism of him as a draft pick because he was a late bloomer in junior hockey for the Ottawa 67s. He didn't even play AAA hockey at one point as a kid. He was just not a very highly touted prospect until his final couple of years in the OHL. So when he got drafted, I remember saying this, I remember this being the analysis of him, that he had a huge shot, a great finish, and everything else needed a lot of work. And right now, because of the problems you see offensively, when it comes to the overall game, defensively, I'm not that impressed either. The speed doesn't appear to be there. If you look at some of his NHL edge numbers, all of those are down from 2 years ago. They're down a lot. The NHL edge is sometimes tough because he was in the 67th percentile with speed bursts 2 years ago. This year, he's below the 50th percentile. The NHL, they don't want guys looking bad, I guess. Everyone that's below the 50th percentile is just marked as below 50th percentile. So I can't tell you if Jack Quinn is in the 4th percentile or if he's in the 48th percentile. All I know is he's below average. He's below the 50th. That's it. And that's lower than he was 2 years ago by at least 17 percentage points for compared to his league mates. But again, maybe it's 50, maybe it's 60. We don't know. So skating has gone down. That's natural. He tore his Achilles. That would happen. And then he re-injured, and then he got another injury at the end of last year. But now, if you're lopping this on top of it, we'll talk about tomorrow whether Ryan McLeod is a part of the core. There is no earthly argument that Jack Quinn is at all. There's no argument that he is right now. He has not even come close to earning that. In fact, wish he could be sent to Rochester because that really is where it looks like he's belonged this season. And contract coming up. I called it a dilemma earlier. I almost stopped myself, but we were about to hit a break. I don't want to, get it sidetracked. It's not a dilemma. There's no dilemma to it at all. The future for Jack Quinn, especially now if they got to worry about any maturity questions. Maybe he just missed one alarm and that's it. But whatever. Now we have to at least wonder, are there maturity questions with him if he's missing meetings that are getting him scratched for games? If that's a part of his story right now too, there's no argument he's getting anything more than like a 1-2 year deal. Qualifying offer, right? Qualifying offer. That's the minimum he can get on his next contract. To me, if you're the Sabres, that's all you offer him. Like, if his agent comes back at you with no, we want like $2.5 million. My answer is no. On what grounds? On what grounds is he getting $2.5 million, $3 million, whatever they would ask for? There is none. He's been terrible. And until he does better, we're doing this 1 year, take it or leave it, qualifying offer. And they'll probably take it. He's not getting offer sheeted, right? There's nobody I think that would offer sheet him right now. So that isn't a danger that it might be the same for Peterka or something for Peterka. It's not for Quinn. Right now, Quinn looks lost, kind of like Dylan Cousins did. And, at least with Cousins, when he got traded to Ottawa, what I said when he got traded to Ottawa is he might figure it out. It was just a needed change of scenery. It was mental. The guy was in his own head. They tried different things. He probably just needed to get out and go try something else. And so far, so good for him on that front. But why has that already looked better? Cousins has things to build on. Cousins has good size, right? He's 6'3". He's still a little scrawny, but he's building muscle. He's super fast. He's a great skater. He, in theory, is supposed to be tenacious and physical. And he's proven the ability to finish to the point where he scored 30 goals in the league. That's something to build on. What is what are the assets? What are the things Jack Quinn has to build on? Size-wise, he's not Cousins, right? 2-3 inches shorter. Skating-wise, he's nothing near Cousins at all. He never had the tenacity, the physicality that Cousins once had. So that isn't there. He never had the ability to finish in the league that we've seen like Cousins did. Cousins scored 30 goals in a season. Quinn, to this point, he was drafted in 2020. It's 5 years ago now. 5 years later, his career high in goals is 14. So he doesn't have that proof, even that he could finish. So what does he have to build on? If he were to get a change of scenery, like Cousins, I was open to seeing it work for him because of all that stuff I just mentioned. For Quinn, I would predict that it wouldn't work. I don't know what it would look like. Same thing with the GM thing. I don't know what it would look like. He I guess would start scoring goals like Victor Olofsson does, maybe, where he just hangs out in his office on the faceoff circle and just rips one-timers. But again, he hasn't even proven that ability to finish at this point in the NHL. So to me, I don't know what to make of Jack Quinn, other than he was a top 10 pick. We saw 27 really good games from him last year. He was dealing with injuries, so give him a full year and another full offseason to heal properly, and he's still very young. Come back for age 23 and get a veteran with him, right? Playing with a veteran full-time. He played with Cousins a lot. That could be part of it, too, that for 2 years now, especially this year, his most common line mate has been the other guy that's been lost in the wilderness. And I don't know that that's really helpful to him. You might want a guy on his line that's more well-grounded, more of a veteran. So I'm not writing Jack Quinn off at all. I'm just saying I don't really see a lot there is to build on with him at this point in time. And now that I'm lopping on a disciplinary action, not great. Not great for Jack Quinn, who was an RFA at the end of the year. All right, we got an interesting weekend coming up. Ottawa fans have just been weird all week. I don't know why they're so focused on Sabre fans in this Dylan Cousins trade. I mean, I get they want to win the trade, but these guys are going to the playoffs, and they're so focused on the Sabres right now. It's very strange. They play this week. We'll talk more about Ottawa, a team I predicted would make the playoffs this year, and it looks like that is going to happen. Cousins returns this week. We'll talk about Ryan McLeod. I would love to hear your reaction on my Terry Pegula take from today. Jack Quinn, if you got it as well. A lot of fun stuff coming up this week on the Locked On Sabres podcast. And, of course, we have our favorite Sabre bracket, which you can continue to vote on at Locked On Sabres on Twitter. No upsets yet. Gilbert Perreault beats Linus Ullmark. That was a 116 matchup. My boy Max Afinogenov does fall in round one. Sometimes, the committee, I guess I'm the committee, but I did randomize it. Didn't do them any favors by lining him up with Rasmus Dahlin in round one. That was the closest one so far. McGillney over Zhitnik, and some live ones right now. Pominville's going to beat Housley. LaFontaine's going to beat Tyler Ennis. Brian Campbell, Derek Roy looks a little closer, though, right now. So trying to figure out who the most popular Sabre is of all time. Who's the most well-liked Sabre of all time? And so far, the favorites are winning. So you can vote on that at Locked On Sabres if you want. If you're looking for more league-wide topics, Ovechkin's in town later in the week. Be sure to check out Locked On NHL. Make them your second listen wherever you get your podcasts. We'll talk to you tomorrow here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.